Hello, everyone. My name is John, and today I'd like to share a story from my life. It's a story that I would have preferred to bury forever, but sometimes the truth needs to be shared. Not to justify, but as a wake up call for others. Life isn't always simple or straightforward. There are times when we find ourselves trapped in temptations, not realizing that we're standing on the edge of a mistake. The story I'm about to tell isn't one of heroism. It's about a man who faltered in his own marriage, facing temptations that I thought I could resist. It's my story, a confession, and above all, a hard lesson in honesty and self-discipline. I'm John, 27 years old, born and raised in a small town in Australia. My family wasn't well off. My parents worked hard just to make ends meet. Due to tough circumstances, I only completed high school before having to drop out to help support my family. As a child, I knew my options were limited and that education was out of my reach. I don't blame anyone for that because my circumstances taught me that it was my responsibility to support my parents. After dropping out of school, I began working at a small garage in town. At first, I was just an assistant, handling odd jobs like cleaning, organizing tools, and helping the main mechanic. Over time, I learned basic skills such as changing oil, checking tires, and eventually repairing engines, brakes, and electrical systems. The work was tough, but it helped me mature and gradually improve my abilities. Though the pay wasn't high, it was enough to help take care of my family, and I was proud to be able to fix complex car problems on my own. As I gained more trust from customers, I knew this garage was not just a place of employment, but also where I grew, learned, and slowly built my career. In early 2013, when I was 27, I married Olivia, my beautiful and talented wife. She is a lawyer, 1 year younger than me, intelligent and charming. We met through a mutual friend, and from our first meeting, I was drawn to Olivia's confidence and strong personality. At first, we were just friends, but over time, through our meetings and dates, our feelings grew. Olivia has a deep perspective on life, and every time I'm with her, I feel understood and connected. Though we come from different backgrounds, she from a wealthy family and me from a modest one, these differences have never been a barrier. We've always respected and understood each other's backgrounds. Throughout the time we've spent together, Olivia has always supported me, both in my work and in life. She is not just a lover, but also a partner, always there to listen and share. We've faced challenges together, and it is that bond that made me realize Olivia is the woman I want to spend my life with. After dating for a while, I knew I had found my true partner. With love and trust, we decided to marry. Olivia's family is very wealthy, completely different from my own circumstances. Her parents are successful business people and always hoped their daughter would marry someone who was her equal in every way. I knew from the start that her family wasn't thrilled about me, but Olivia fought for our relationship, and her love made me feel at ease. Still, I couldn't help but self-conscious about the difference in our families. After we married, because my family couldn't afford it, I agreed to live with Olivia's family. At first, I was hesitant, afraid that living with them would put pressure on me. But Olivia always encouraged me, reminding me that as long as we loved and respected each other, everything would be fine. So, we began our married life in her family's large home. However, the differences between our families created challenges I hadn't anticipated. I tried my best to fulfill my role as a husband, but at the same time, I often felt out of place in my own home, where everything felt foreign and didn't seem to belong to me. Our married life started out truly happy. Olivia was a thoughtful, intelligent wife who always knew how to make me feel loved. In the first few months after the wedding, everything went smoothly. We often spent our evenings together, shared meals, and exchanged stories about our work and lives. Despite being the son-in-law, Olivia's care made me feel at ease, and things weren't as difficult as I had initially feared. However, that phase didn't last long. Olivia, a dedicated lawyer, became increasingly busy with her work, and the company frequently sent her on business trips, sometimes for just a few days, other times for a week. The evenings in the large house began to feel emptier, lacking the laughter and lively conversations that had once filled the air. Her parents were also often caught up with the company, rarely at home, which made the house feel even more deserted. Eventually, The only people left in the spacious house were me and Olivia's younger sister, Lily. She was a young, beautiful, and vibrant woman. While at first I regarded her as a sibling, I soon began to notice her constant, scrutinizing gaze. She frequently acted overly familiar, asking me about life, about Olivia. Though her questions seemed innocent, they made me uneasy, as I sensed there was something more behind them. Every evening when Olivia was away, I felt incredibly lonely. The large house became cold and silent, with even the smallest sounds echoing, reminding me of how lost I was. There were times when I would sit on the couch, staring into space, wondering where my marriage was headed, as Olivia's increasing workload consumed more of her time. I loved her, but the growing sense of isolation began to erode me day by day. In those vulnerable moments, my sister-in-law's attention became even more noticeable, making it harder for me to resist. She began appearing more frequently in my line of sight, dressed in revealing clothes, almost as if to deliberately draw attention. Initially, I told myself it was just a coincidence, but after several instances, I realized she was doing it intentionally. I tried to avoid these thoughts, convincing myself that I shouldn't entertain them, but the loneliness grew stronger, and I knew I was standing on a precarious edge where one wrong move could change everything forever. From the moment I entered the house, I had noticed Olivia's younger sister, a striking young woman with sharp eyes. Although she never said anything, I could always sense her eyes following me as I moved around the house. At first, I paid little attention to it, as she was just my sister-in-law, a family member who I never considered in any other way. I knew I was tall and athletic, which was probably what had drawn her attention, but I never allowed my thoughts to go beyond that. In the early months, life proceeded as usual. I spent most of my time in the garage, returning home late, and only seeing my sister-in-law briefly during meals or while cleaning the house. But as Olivia's business trips became more frequent, things started to shift. The longer Olivia was gone, the more I noticed Lily's presence. It wasn't just that we were living under the same roof, but her behavior seemed to have changed. She no longer kept her distance and instead chose to wear thinner, more revealing clothing when we were alone. At first, I tried to rationalize it as just a personal habit, nothing out of the ordinary, but day after day, it became too blatant to ignore. She appeared in tank tops or even nightgowns that barely covered her body, and every time she passed me, her eyes seemed to glide over me, almost daring me to react. I tried to stay calm, reminding myself that she was just my sister-in-law and that Olivia was still the one I loved. But deep down, I couldn't deny that her loneliness and seductive presence were starting to cause me to waver. I realized that I could hardly ignore this subtle attraction, even though I knew I shouldn't be thinking about her. Still, her presence in Olivia's absence was becoming an increasingly strong temptation that I couldn't ignore. I began paying closer attention to her every movement, every seemingly meaningful gesture. The internal battle between my reason and emotions, between my loyalty to Olivia and my weakness in the face of temptation, became more intense. I knew I was standing on the edge of something dangerous, where one wrong move could destroy everything. One evening in July 2013, things spiraled out of control faster than I could have ever imagined. It started as an ordinary day, but looking back, it was the moment when my life took a darker turn. Olivia was away on a business trip that day, as she often was, and I had grown accustomed to spending time alone at home. My in-laws weren't around either, and it was just Lily and me in that vast, silent house. We had dinner together. Nothing unusual happened, just the typical conversation, questions about work, and a few random remarks. But there was a strange sensation creeping up inside me, an underlying tension that I tried to ignore. After dinner, I went to the bathroom to unwind, thinking that a few moments under the cool water would help me shake off this unsettling feeling. I closed the bathroom door, but exhausted from the day, I forgot to lock it. All I could focus on was a quick shower, completely unaware of anything else. I undressed, ready to let the water wash over me, hoping it would calm my racing thoughts. Suddenly, I heard the door creak open. I turned my head, and the sight before me made my heart skip a beat. My sister-in-law, completely naked, stepped into the bathroom as if it had all been planned. The light reflected off her pale skin, accentuating every curve. She stared directly at me, her eyes filled with boldness and defiance, showing no hesitation or shame. I stammered, my whole body frozen in shock. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice trembling as I tried to hold on to whatever reason I had left in this absurd situation. But she didn't answer immediately. She took another step toward me, her eyes still fixed on my form. Then she spoke, her voice soft, yet laden with insinuation, like an irresistible invitation. "Do you want to know what my body feels like?" I stood there, paralyzed, not knowing how to respond. My mind screamed at me to turn away, to push her out, but my body betrayed me. My gaze was locked on every line of her figure, and with every step she took, I couldn't look away. My heart raced, my breath quickened, and I knew I was teetering on the edge of a mistake that couldn't be undone. "Get out! You can't do this," I managed to say, but my voice lacked strength and conviction. She didn't stop. She kept moving closer until she was only a foot away from me. The bathroom light cast an almost hypnotic glow on her, making everything too obvious and too tempting to resist. I could feel myself losing control, swept up in a whirlwind of desire and weakness. The bathroom door closed behind her with a soft click, like a final signal that there was no going back. Despite the overwhelming guilt and fear in my heart, I couldn't resist. With the instinct of a man deprived of his wife for too long, I couldn't bear to be in the presence of such temptation. I pulled her close, and in that instant, all logic and reason faded away. We had crossed a line, moving too fast, and I knew that there was no undoing what had just happened. Afterward, a crushing wave of guilt hit me, heavy and suffocating, like a nightmare I couldn't escape. I stood there in the steam-filled bathroom, my body stiff, my mind numb, unable to comprehend the enormity of what I had just done. My sister-in-law looked at me with gleaming eyes and a smug smile, as if it had all been a harmless game, a small victory in her eyes. But for me, it was a betrayal. I had betrayed Olivia, my wife, who had loved and trusted me. I had violated the very principles I once believed I held dear. My heart was consumed with remorse and self-hatred, yet the situation had progressed too far to reverse. I silently walked out of the bathroom, too ashamed to meet my sister-in-law's gaze. The house was eerily still, with only my footsteps echoing in the long corridor. I quickly returned to my room and dressed, but the weight of guilt still clung to me, refusing to let go. When my in-laws and Olivia returned from their long workdays, I attempted to act as if nothing had occurred. We had dinner together, discussed work, and everything seemed calm on the surface. Yet inside, a storm of guilt and regret churned, threatening to engulf me at any moment. Lily, on the other hand, appeared unchanged, without a trace of confusion or remorse. In fact, she seemed more self-assured and content than ever. She conversed naturally with Olivia and her parents, as though nothing had transpired between us. Occasionally, her eyes would briefly meet mine, a fleeting glance enough to remind me of everything, deepening the weight in my chest. Each night, as I lay beside Olivia, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, staring at the ceiling as images of what had happened played over and over in my mind. I wanted to confess, to tell Olivia everything, but the fear was overwhelming. I knew that if I spoke, everything would fall apart. This marriage would end, and I would lose everything. So we both remained silent, my sister-in-law and I, each day feeling like an unbearable burden, with the guilt growing like a wound that refused to heal. It felt as though I was living a lie, outwardly the perfect husband and son-in-law, but inwardly a traitor, consumed with guilt and self-loathing. I didn't know how much longer I could bear this, but I understood that nothing would ever be the same. The guilt had gnawed at me, making it impossible to face myself. Every time I looked in the mirror, I was reminded of the person I had become. I want to share a heartfelt message with everyone, especially those who have faced or are facing temptations in life. Temptations often come unexpectedly, appearing when we are most vulnerable, in moments of weakness, loneliness, or imbalance. These temptations can pull us into a downward spiral, one that's hard to escape from, causing us to lose control in an instant. The most important thing is to remain calm and composed when faced with temptation. You must realize that a single moment of wrongdoing doesn't just affect the present. It has lasting consequences that can destroy the most precious things in your life, your family, your love, and your self-respect. I have been there, and I know that the guilt and regret are not easy to shake off. Remember, self control is not only a responsibility to others, but also to yourself. Don't allow a moment of weakness to lead you into situations that will haunt you for the rest of your life. The value of a person lies in their ability to recognize right from wrong and know when to stop before things spiral out of control. Never sacrifice your family's happiness or your self respect for a fleeting moment of wrong. Once you cross that line, there's no going back. If I could turn back time, I would have chosen to exercise better self control so I wouldn't have to endure the torment and regret I feel now. Don't allow yourself to face the pain I'm going through.